3 weeks after my brother's fairy tale wedding, I found myself sitting outside his apartment in the rain, holding a casserole I didn't cook and a suspicion I couldn't shake. What happened next shocked everyone, and it changed our family forever. Let me back up. My brother, Nolan, married a woman named Clarissa in a ceremony that looked like it had been pulled straight from a bridal magazine. Lace, candlelight, violins, the works. He cried when she walked down the aisle. I cried too, but for different reasons I didn't understand at the time. The kind of tears you only identify later as grief for a future you thought was going to be okay. After the reception, I suggested we all grab drinks. Nolan looked uneasy, said Clarissa thought it was best if they turned in early for their suite. We'll all reconnect after Bali, he promised. But things changed. Fast. Nolan, who used to flood the family group chat with bad memes and sweet photos of their cat, just stopped responding. No texts, no calls. Our mom, who's not exactly prone to overreactions, called me sobbing one night, asking if I'd drive by to check on him. I thought she was being paranoid. Still, I went. Because I'm the oldest. Because I always go. Clarissa answered the door. No greeting, no smile. Just a cold, flat, "Nolan's resting." Then she slammed the door in my face. It didn't stop there. Every time I tried to see him, she had a new excuse. Therapy session. Too tired. Busy day. It was like I was knocking on a wall instead of a door. And maybe I could have left it alone. But I'm a trauma social worker. And when people disappear, my gut takes over. So the following Wednesday, I waited outside the Whole Foods near his condo. I knew he'd usually drop by around 2. When I saw him, my stomach dropped. Nolan looked like a ghost, pale, confused, like the color had been bleached from his life. He barely blinked when I stepped out of my car. I asked how he was. He muttered something about his meds not working. That was my first red flag. You should talk to your psychiatrist, I said. No. Clarissa's taking care of it, he snapped. Then apologized for snapping. I couldn't get it out of my head. So that weekend, I dropped by with what I claimed was Mom's homemade casserole. It was a microwaved pasta tray from Target. Clarissa said Nolan was off at some emergency session, this time in a clinic I'd never even heard of. I smiled at her. Oh, I know the place. I'll just go pick him up myself. Her entire demeanor cracked. He already Ubered back, she barked. Then slammed the door again. The next day, Nolan called me from an unknown number. I picked up and immediately heard the sound of water, splashing, slow, like a tub being filled. I feel like I'm losing my mind, he said. Then the line cut out. That night I didn't sleep. Neither did Mom. We spammed his phone. Clarissa answered on the 9th call. He needs rest, she screamed. Then blocked us both. And then came the final blow. 2 weeks later, Nolan and Clarissa sent out glossy vow renewal invitations. It made no sense. Why renew vows after just a few months? But I RSVP'd yes. I had to. Because if Clarissa thought I was going to back down, she had no idea who she was dealing with. I wore my nicest dress and my fakest smile. The vow renewal was held at this upscale rooftop lounge in downtown Phoenix, all twinkle lights and curated floral arches. Nolan looked different. Not sick, not confused, but like a man who'd been through a storm and crawled back just enough to pretend he hadn't. Clarissa floated through the crowd like a pageant queen, hugging, laughing, calling people darling, in that syrupy tone that always made my skin crawl. She wore a custom gown with embroidered vines, smiling like she owned the world. The ceremony started just before sunset. We all gathered under the ivy-wrapped pergola. Nolan took her hands, and I braced myself for a load of mush. Instead, he reached into his jacket and pulled out a small orange pill bottle. Before I say anything, he said, voice trembling slightly, I want to talk about this. Clarissa stiffened. The room hushed. For months, I thought I was losing my mind, Nolan continued, holding the bottle up. Hallucinations, paranoia, confusion. I blamed my meds. I blamed my diagnosis. I blamed myself. A beat of silence. But then I noticed this bottle didn't rattle like the ones from the pharmacy. Because inside were sugar pills. Not risperidone. Not my prescribed antipsychotics. Just nothing. He looked at her. Clarissa, do you want to explain? Or should I? The silence was deafening. Clarissa scoffed. You're really going to ruin this moment for attention? Nolan didn't flinch. Fine. I'll explain. He turned to the guests. My wife has been swapping out my medication for fakes. She's isolated me from my family. Told everyone I was too fragile, too broken, too sick. But it wasn't my illness making me spiral. It was her. There was an audible gasp. A woman dropped her champagne flute. I felt like time slowed. Clarissa's jaw clenched. Then, in one sudden movement, she stormed toward me and slapped me across the face. You manipulative bitch! She screamed. You made him say this. Before I could react, Nolan pulled her back. Don't touch her. From the crowd, Uncle Ray stepped forward, retired cop, always carried a badge even at weddings. He escorted Clarissa away while she screamed bloody murder. She was arrested that night. Charged with reckless endangerment and tampering with prescription medication. They held her for 72 hours. But of course, Clarissa didn't go down quietly. 2 weeks later, she was released early for good behavior and overcrowding. And almost immediately, the retaliation began. The first sign came when my cousin, Jordan, who I hadn't spoken to in months, called me, confused and cautious. Hey, are you okay? She asked. I saw your Facebook posts. You sounded unwell. My stomach dropped. I hadn't posted anything. I logged in and saw them, screenshots, supposedly from my account, ranting about how Nolan was ungrateful, how I was the one who saved him from that succubus, and how I'd do it all over again. The posts made me look unstable. Dangerous. Photoshopped timestamps. Fabricated messages. Carefully selected language to make me sound obsessive. I tried to explain. Jordan listened barely. Then she just said, I hope you get help. And hung up. Within a day, 3 relatives blocked me. Aunt Margot left me a voicemail that started with, We all know you were never okay. That was when I knew Clarissa was weaponizing perception. And she was only getting started. The next morning, a box showed up at my door. No return address. Inside, 13 empty prescription bottles labeled with my name, all in Clarissa's handwriting. Tucked beneath them was a note. Just in case you need help with your reality again. See, I didn't sleep that night. And something told me this was just the opening act. You'd think after the pill switch and the Facebook smears, I'd be prepared for anything Clarissa could throw at me. But what she did next didn't just shake me, it cracked something inside me wide open. It started with a phone call from Nolan. His voice was low, rattled. I keep getting letters, he whispered. Typed. No return address. They're about things I apparently did when I was sick. Things I don't remember. But they're detailed. Disturbingly detailed. I asked him what they said. He hesitated. One said I threatened you. Another said I tried to jump off our balcony. I don't even know if it's true. It wasn't. None of it was. But Clarissa had always known how to see doubt. Even in someone's own memories. And that's when it hit me, this wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about erasure. She wasn't just trying to destroy Nolan's life. She was trying to rewrite it. And mine. When I was 17, I dated a guy who used to joke that I was too smart to be loved. At first, I laughed it off. But over time, I started shrinking myself to fit what he wanted, quieter, sweeter, smaller. I stopped correcting him in conversations. I stopped standing up for myself. Eventually, I stopped speaking entirely when we were in public. The night he slapped me across the face in his truck outside a Denny's, I didn't cry. I just apologized. My sister, Leah, found me later that night in the bathroom, trying to cover the red mark with drugstore foundation. I told her I'd tripped in the parking lot. She never questioned it. She never told. Sometimes I wonder if Clarissa had that same silence built into her. That same belief that control was love, that manipulation was loyalty. But Clarissa wasn't shrinking herself for anyone. She was making others smaller to feel powerful. The day after Nolan's call, I noticed things were missing from my apartment. A framed photo of us as kids. My extra set of keys. Then my anxiety meds disappeared from my medicine cabinet. I checked the building's security footage. And there she was. Clarissa. Calm as anything. Wearing scrubs, a face mask, and Nolan's old spare key, walking into my apartment like she belonged. The building manager told me it wasn't enough for police action. Not without a restraining order. Not unless something violent happened. So I changed the locks. Again. But I didn't feel safe. Not even close. 2 days later, my supervisor, David, pulled me into his office. His phone was on the desk. He didn't even look up when he said it. "We need to talk about your social media activity." Someone had made a fake Instagram account using my name, my face, and twisted versions of my posts, only slightly altered. It looked so real, even I had to double-check the spelling. The account was sending disturbing messages to my colleagues. My agency's director. Nolan's therapist. Messages about self-harm. Conspiracies. Mind control. I swore it wasn't me. I offered screenshots, emails, everything. HR got involved. I was put under a review period. My cases were redistributed. I could feel my career teetering on the edge. The worst part? I felt myself questioning my own reality. Clarissa had been inside my home. She'd touched my meds. She'd mirrored my voice online. Who would believe me anymore? The answer came a week later. A knock at my door. 2 CPS agents. A report had been filed. Allegations of child endangerment on my neighbor's daughter, whom I babysat every other Friday. I nearly threw up right there on the carpet. They said the tip was anonymous. Said I was accused of unauthorized medication administration. Of being mentally unstable. It took 3 weeks, 6 interviews, and a letter from my therapist to clear my name. But the damage was done. My neighbor tearfully said she couldn't let me babysit anymore. I have to protect her, she said. I understood. But I'd never felt more poisoned. Like Clarissa's lies had seeped into every corner of my life. I called Nolan that night. "I'm done letting her win," I said. "But I can't do this alone." There was a pause. "I think I have a way," he said. Then he added, "She still calls me sometimes. Leaves voicemails." That was the moment the tide began to turn. Nolan was nervous. We practiced what he'd say over and over again. He had to sound uncertain, vulnerable. Just enough of the old, disoriented Nolan to make Clarissa drop her guard. He called her from my apartment, speaker on, my recorder running. When she answered, her voice was all syrup again. "Baby," she cooed. "I've been so worried." Nolan leaned into the act. I've been thinking about what you said in your letters. About my sister. About the stuff I did when I was off my meds." He paused just long enough to let his breath shake. "I need to know if any of it was real." Clarissa took the bait. Her voice got lower, warmer. "Of course it was real. You told me everything. You don't remember, but I do." She began spinning stories, half-truths sewn together with lies. Tales of how I supposedly hit her, screamed at Nolan, threatened to take him away from her. Things that never happened. Things that sounded real enough to believe if you wanted to. Then came the slip. "Remember when you told me about your sister's termination?" she said, almost offhandedly. "How she made you drive her to that clinic out in Mesa because she didn't want anyone to know." I stopped breathing. I'd never had a termination. I'd had a miscarriage. Quiet, painful, buried deep. Only Nolan and my doctor had known. Clarissa hadn't been around back then. But she'd read it in his medical notes. Or maybe hacked his phone when he was too sick to notice. It was proof. She wasn't just lying. She was digging. Nolan kept her talking, and it all spilled out, details about my work, my past clients, even my social security number. Every scrap of info she'd weaponized was on that call. By the end of it, my hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped the phone. We took the recording straight to Uncle Ray. He didn't just listen, he took notes. Legal notes. His face went from sympathetic to steely in 5 minutes flat. "This is stalking," he said. "This is identity theft, medical privacy violations, impersonation. It's enough to get a restraining order reinstated and federal charges rolling." But Clarissa must have sensed we were closing in. Because 2 days later, she struck harder than ever before. David, my supervisor, called me in again. "I don't know what kind of grudge this woman has," he said grimly, "but she filed a report with the state board. Said you used your position to dig into her records. That you accessed a client file illegally for personal revenge." The name she gave? L. Carrington. Her maiden name. The board suspended me without pay pending investigation. They had to. It was procedure. Even with proof, even with documentation, the damage had been done. Again. That night, Uncle Ray called a family meeting. Everyone came: Mom, our aunts, cousins, even the ones who'd blocked me during Clarissa's smear campaign. Somehow, Clarissa got wind of it. And she showed up. With a manila folder in her arms, full of fake screenshots and doctored messages. "I just want you all to see who she really is," she announced. But this time, Nolan stood first. "No," he said, voice firm. "You don't get to talk anymore." And then he pressed play. The room fell dead silent. Clarissa's voice filled the space, casual and cruel, detailing how she'd swapped his meds, faked messages, stalked me, impersonated a social worker. She even laughed on the tape. Bragged about how easy it is when everyone thinks she's the unstable one. My mom gasped. One of our cousins cried. Even Aunt Valerie, who'd defended Clarissa for months, stood up, trembling with rage. Clarissa froze, then darted toward Nolan. "If you don't fix this right now, I swear I'll tell everyone you're off your meds again," she hissed. But Nolan was ready. He'd recorded that too. He uploaded it straight to the family group chat. The one I'd been kicked out of 6 months earlier. The group exploded. Apologies poured in. Tears. Regret. One by one, they turned to me, ashamed, angry, sorry. Clarissa realized it too late. Her game was up. But we weren't done. Clarissa didn't go quietly. She never did. 2 days after the family ambush, I woke up to my phone vibrating nonstop. Hundreds of notifications. Someone had posted about me on Reddit. Not one post, dozens. Across family drama threads, mental health subreddits, caregiver support groups. All claiming to be me. I ruined my brother's marriage out of jealousy. I stalked his wife. I faked harassment to cover up my own obsession. Thousands of upvotes. Tens of thousands of views. Comments calling me unwell, unfit, even dangerous. The posts were painfully detailed, blending real memories with twisted fiction. Photos taken from my own apartment were used as proof. Dates and medical terms added a veneer of credibility. It was public shaming on a viral scale. A smear campaign that now had the entire internet believing I was some unhinged sibling with a savior complex. But this time, she'd gone too far. She left fingerprints. Marcus, our cybersecurity expert, had been monitoring digital breadcrumbs. It took him less than 48 hours to link the posts to the same VPN and IP pool Clarissa had used before. Her writing style. The metadata in the image files. The fact that one photo she used, of Nolan sedated on the couch, had never been posted online before. It was stolen. From my phone. Sarah, the ex-member of Clarissa's harassment group, recognized the Reddit smear tactic immediately. She handed us screenshots from their private Discord, Clarissa bragging about dropping the truth bomb, and how she hoped it made that B*TCH lose her job. We had her. Legally. Digitally. Socially. Uncle Ray moved fast, coordinating with prosecutors and law enforcement. Within days, Clarissa was arrested in her apartment 2 states away, charged with cyberstalking, impersonation of a mental health worker, ID theft, and multiple restraining order violations. But even in cuffs, she kept performing. "I'm just a woman trying to protect herself," she told the arresting officer. "This family tried to erase me. I'm the victim here." She smiled for the body cam. But this time, no one bought it. The arrest made local news. And from there, national. Especially once other victims came forward, former roommates, ex-boyfriends, even a woman whose entire career had been derailed by a similar campaign after dating someone Clarissa had once fixated on. The trial was grueling. Clarissa showed up to court looking like a reformed schoolteacher, hair pulled back, glasses, minimal makeup. But her true colors bled through in every cross-examination. She insisted the med bottles were a family joke. Claimed breaking into my apartment wasn't breaking in because family members don't need permission. The jury didn't buy it. Sarah's testimony sealed it. Along with Marcus's data logs, our recordings, the Reddit trace, and a laundry list of people Clarissa had targeted, her victim narrative unraveled in real time. Guilty on all counts. Clarissa was sentenced to 5 years in federal prison with 3 years probation, restitution for her victims, and a lifetime ban from social media or using aliases in official documentation. She didn't cry. She didn't beg. She just stared at the floor like someone who'd lost the script. And for once, she had no one left to perform for. The healing started slowly. I got my job back. My name cleared. David even promoted me to lead my department after the board ruled in my favor. Nolan and Jamie, God, they made it. Stronger than before. She told me one night at dinner. I saw the worst of him. Not because of him, but because someone tried to break him. And he still showed up for me. Uncle Ray retired 6 months later. Said he'd worked harder for us than any case in his last 5 years. And Mom? She cried when Nolan and Jamie announced they were expecting a baby girl, due on the anniversary of Clarissa's arrest. They named her Grace. I kept one of the empty med bottles Clarissa had sent me for years. But after Grace was born, I threw it out. Not because I forgot. Because I didn't need to hold on anymore. We were free. And she was just a cautionary tale now. A warning about what obsession can do. About how truth doesn't always shout, but it always waits. And in the end, it outlasts everything.